Okay, hi guys. This is my first sit-down video and I am filming a what I read this summer. So I am a very avid reader. I actually have a little book tattoo. And summer is usually when I get the most reading done. So I'm just gonna walk you guys through all of the books that I read, hopefully give you some good recommendations, and yeah, stay tuned. And then I have everything on, like all of the books that I read on my laptop, so I'll be looking down at this. But I read 27 total books this summer. Usually a lot of them were romance. I feel like summer is like the best time for some good romance books. I also read a lot of historical fiction, regular fiction, a couple of thrillers, and yeah, so I'm just gonna start off. I have some books here, like actual physical books, but a lot of them I read on my Kindle. I read a lot of books on my Kindle, so I'll just let you guys know if I read it then. So the first book that I read is the Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hildebrand, and I gave this 5 stars. It's just about this hotel in Nantucket. All of her books are set there, so it's a really great summer read. And it just follows a family and a couple of people that work inside the Hotel Nantucket, and then it is haunted by this ghost. So I really liked it. It's just like a general fiction book, but most of her books I've given 5 stars, so I really do enjoy it, and I feel like it's the perfect summer read. So yeah, a great start off to my summer reading. And then after that, I read Thank You for Listening by Julia Wheelman, and I gave it 2 stars. I read it on my Kindle, and I didn't really like this book. I just felt like the characters fell flat. It was supposed to be a romance, but there was like no chemistry between the people, so I didn't really like it. So yeah, I kind of like forgot that I read it. And then I'll have all of these reads on my Goodreads that is linked down below. Okay, and then after that, I read The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, which is a thriller. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book. It was super fast-paced. One of my coworkers actually lent it out to me, so I don't have it. But it just follows this girl who goes to Paris because I think her brother went missing. So it follows that around. And Lucy Foley, she has really short chapters, really fast-paced, which I like. So I read that. And after, I read The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. Also, just read it on my Kindle. So The True Love Experiment follows Fizzy, and she is a romance author. And then she kind of has a hard time with her own romances, and so she meets Connor, who is a documentary filmmaker, and he actually starts a reality show called The True Love Experiment and sets Fizzy up on dates. It's kind of like it's kind of like The Bachelorette. And they ended up falling in love, and I really liked it. I like basically all of Christina Lauren's books. I gave it 5 stars, and just the chemistry was really good between the 2 characters, and yeah, I thought it was like a really unique plot. And Connor's actually a single father, so that was fun to read about. Yeah, I actually really liked that book. After, I read The Cave Dwellers by Christina McDowell. So my coworker actually rented it out to me. I gave it 3 stars. It's kind of like Gossip Girl. It follows a couple of like politicians and their families in Hollywood, or not in Hollywood, in Washington, D.C. And this follows that. I think there's like a murder, but it's a really quick read. Don't really remember a lot of it, but I remember enjoying it while I was reading. It was a really unique plot that I haven't really read about before, so yeah, I read that book. After that, I read In a New York Minute by, Kate Spencer, and I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book as well. It is a romance about 2 strangers who met in a subway in New York, and they have a really weird, like they have a cute meet, and it is filmed, and they keep running into each other in New York City, so it's pretty like uncommon since it's just a big city, and just follows their story, and I really liked that one as well. Ooh, and then after, I read Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan, and I absolutely love this book. I watched the movie a couple years back, and I never really had any interest reading the book, but I had it. I like picked it up at a thrift store, decided to start reading it, and I absolutely loved it. It just follows Rachel who spends the summer in Singapore with her boyfriend, and she just comes to realize that he's actually like really rich and kind of like royalty in Singapore, and just follows their story. I really liked like the character development of it. All of the characters were so unique. Rachel I found myself rooting for her. I really enjoyed this book a lot. I highly recommend picking it up, even if you've seen the movie. It is a really great read. It has more details, and you just get to learn and get to know the characters more. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And then after that, I read Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. Did not really like this book. Gave it 2 stars. I think I also picked this up in a thrift store. I don't even remember what it's about, but I just remember like not liking it and basically skimming over like the last half of the book. There was just like no chemistry between the characters. They kind of fell flat. I don't really like the main character. She was weird, so didn't really enjoy that one. But she also wrote The Hating Game, and I remember really liking that book. Turned into a movie. Loved the movie. So yeah, I was a little disappointed by that. After that, I read The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi. I actually had started a book, or my coworkers and I started a book club over the summer. This was our first and only book that we read, and it just follows Lakshmi. I hope I'm saying that right. And it's set in the 1950s in India, and it follows her and how she became a henna artist, and then she just gets the news that she has a long lost sister, so it follows the story of them. The first part was really slow and I wasn't really enjoying it, but then the last half of it, like about 50% of the way through, it picked up and I like could not put it down. I enjoyed it. I gave it, I think, 3.5 stars. So yeah, it's just the first part was really boring and slow, so that kind of lags for like the overall rating, but I recommend it if you want like a historical fiction novel. I read the first 5 books of the Addicted / Calloway Sisters series by Krista and Becca Ritchie. And I have a couple of thoughts on this. I think I gave most of the books like 3 to 3.5 stars. I was a little bit disappointed. I remember reading it and like trying to hype myself up because basically everybody else read it and loved it, and I just wasn't feeling it. It just felt a little unrealistic. I couldn't really connect with the characters, and yeah, I like the Calloway Sisters series a little bit more, so Hot House Flower and Kiss the Sky, but overall kind of mid. I don't know if I'm gonna finish the series. I'll see edits of it on my TikTok a lot, and it looks interesting, but I remember just reading it and not really liking it a ton. So I don't know if I'll continue with that, but yeah, so that means I read Addicted to You, Ricochet, Addicted After All, Kiss the Sky, and Hot House Flower. So 5 books, all on my Kindle right here, and yeah, didn't really like it a lot. That's all I have to say. And then after that, that was a lot of like romance, so I wanted to switch it up. So I read 9 Perfect Strangers by Leanne Moriarty. She also wrote Big Little Lies. So I was in the mood for like a thriller, psychological thriller, just like a book to switch it up. And I really liked it. I think I gave it 5 stars. It just follows a group of 9 people who go to this health and like wellness retreat. I think it's set in like Australia or New Zealand, and it just follows them. There's like a couple of plot twists, and I really liked it. It kept me on my toes. I didn't really expect what was coming, and it was like a nice like palate cleanser, you could say, from the past books that I read. So I really liked that. It is a little bit of a bigger book, so if you're in for a great read, highly recommend picking that up. And then after that, I wanted to get back into romance, so once again on my Kindle I read Under Lock by Mariana Zapata. She is like one of my favorite authors. I love her books. I feel like definitely slow burn is my favorite type of romance because I'm just in it for the plot, the build up, the tension. Once they're like, when you read a romance, they always end up together, so I want to see like the progression of that. So I really enjoyed it. I have read it like 3 times, so it was just like another reread for me, but I just felt like I wanted to read something easy, quick, comfortable. I always rely on her books. I have like all of them downloaded on my Kindle, and I always find myself picking it up if I want to get out of like a little reading slump, if I'm not feeling like any of the other books on my TBR. So I really did enjoy it. It just follows this girl, Iris, who moves to Texas with her stepbrother. She's kind of like starting over in life, and she works as a receptionist at this tattoo parlor, and the owner's name is Dex. He is like this big bulky man, and at first they like don't really hit it off, but in true Mariana fashion, they end up getting together. It's one of her more like faster novels, but most of her books, they don't get together until like 90% of the way through, and that's what I like about it. So yeah, I read that. And then after I read Under Lock, I picked up The Gracier by Kim Liggett. And I like to switch things up, so I'll read like a romance, then a fiction, then like a dystopian. So The Gracier is a YA dystopian novel, and it follows a bunch of girls who, once they turn 16, are essentially like banished into a forest for a year for their grace year, because they're supposed to have some sort of like magic. They mess with guys or with men, and it kind of reminds me of like The Handmaid's Tale, but it's like YA, and I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it while I was reading it, but kind of left like a bad taste in my mouth. The ending was a little weird. Like halfway through the book, the plot like kind of changes, so it kind of goes like back and forth. I didn't really like it as much. It kind of left a bad taste in the mouth. The ending is kind of weird. But yeah, so if you're in the mood for like a good dystopian novel, you can definitely pick up The Gracier. I remember loving Divergent, The Hunger Games, Maze Runner, all in middle school, so it was kind of nice to read like another dystopian and bring it back to that era. So after that, I picked up Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It's one of my last books I didn't have to pick up from her, kind of making my way through her backlog. And once again, her books are amazing. I think I gave it like 5 stars, and it was really nice. I think it's one of like her first novels before she like got super well known and like famous. But yeah, so it just follows Hannah, who is kind of like drifted around the US, never really planted roots, and so she goes back to her hometown of Los Angeles, and then she bumps into like an old childhood friend, lover, and essentially it like after that it like splits in 2 of like when she goes home with him versus when she doesn't, and it follows like 2 different storylines, and each chapter it's like a different storyline, and I found that it was really interesting. Just makes you like think a little about like how each decision that you make can have like a really big impact. So I really enjoyed this book, and it was really good, so I highly recommend that. After that, I reread Book Lovers by Emily Henry. So I read this last year, loved it, decided to pick it up again. I was just in the mood for like a nice summer read, and this is perfect for that. So it follows 2 rivals, Nora and Charlie. They both work as like literary agents in like the publishing industry, and they are kind of rivals, and they both end up in a really small town, and like it follows them in that small town. It focuses a lot on Nora's relationship with her sister. She is a very headstrong girl, loves New York, very like career driven, so it was really interesting seeing that, how that plays out. Charlie, an amazing book boyfriend, and it was really good. So it was the 2nd time that I picked it up, and yeah, I really enjoyed that. Okay, after Book Lovers, I read His and Hers by Alice Feeney. Once again, on my Kindle. It is on Kindle Unlimited, so I picked it up there, and I love all of her books. Each thriller has such like a big plot twist that I would have never expected or like seen coming, so that was a lot of fun. It just follows this divorced couple that gets caught in a murder investigation, and it always leaves like It's really chilling, kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth after I'm done. It's like the writing, the plot is fantastic, but a lot of her books are like pretty disturbing, so can't read all of them at once, but it was nice to just pick up another thriller, read it super quickly, great plot, and yeah, I also recommend that book, but it is a little heavy, so you gotta be in like the right mindset to read it. And then after that, I read Dunn and Dustin, once again on my Kindle. Didn't really like it. It felt like super insta-lovey. Yeah, I just didn't like it. I give it 2 stars. Rising by Pierce Brown. DNF'd it. I got, I think, 30% of the way in. Just could not get into the book. I wasn't really following it. I wasn't paying attention. I hope to pick it up again because it is super popular, but I just didn't really enjoy it. So DNF'd that. And then after, it was like 2 bad books in a row. So I was like, I need something that'll get me out of this slump. I need a really good read. So I turned back to Ellen Hilderbrand and read The 5-Star Weekend by her. Absolutely loved it. I read it on my Kindle, and I can always just count on her books to get me out of a slump. It was really awesome. Gave it 5 stars. So it basically follows this one mother who just lost her husband and is this like really famous like food blogger, and she essentially decides to go back to Nantucket and have a 5-star weekend and connect with each of her best friends from different stages of her life, and it follows them, and I really liked it. A lot of her writing is like geared towards like middle-aged women, but I found myself enjoying her books just because she's like super descriptive about Nantucket, about like the culture, the food, the vibes. Really did enjoy it. Okay, and then after that, I read All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. I was just in the mood for another one of her books, and this one is one of my favorites from her. Once again, read it on my Kindle, and it just follows Aurora, who moves back to her hometown after being away for like 10-15 years, and she decides to, or she like found this rental on this website, goes there. Turns out the owner's son decided to give it to, or like decided to put it on illegally or without his dad's permission, and she gets there, meets them, she decides to stay, and it just follows the story of them. It's really cute. I really enjoyed it. It's one of her newer releases, and I just felt like the setting, the characters, and all of that was super fun. It kind of has this like found family aspect of it, which I really enjoyed. And I really liked Aurora, the main character. She is a very like headstrong woman. She's dealing with a lot of stuff, but I really did enjoy that book. I can always count on Mariana Zapata's books, just to make me feel good. It's one of my favorites, and I really did enjoy it. After that, I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. So this follows a friend group from college, who I think 10 years later, they get together at a beach house in Maine every year, and there's this couple, so it's a second chance fake dating tropes. So it follows this couple who have been dating and were engaged but decided to call it off, but none of their friends know. So once they get to the beach house, they have to like fake date and essentially pretend, and it just follows that. A lot of Emily Henry's books read as like a literary fiction with romance in it, and her writing just gets better and better as I keep reading her books. So I did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't my favorite, but I did enjoy it nonetheless, so I definitely recommend it. The Book of Two Ways by Jodi Picoult. I enjoyed the first half of this, but the main character's decisions, I didn't really vibe with. It just follows this mother, Dawn, who gets in a plane crash and decides to go to Egypt. She had a career before, like as an archaeologist in Egypt, but decided to leave it, and just follows her life. Just follows her as she goes back to reconnect with like a lost love, and just like finish the work that she started like 15 years ago, before she ended up having to come back to the States and just continue her life here. So it is kind of like maybe in another life. So it follows like 2 different timelines of one when she decided to go to Egypt, and then after the plane crash, and then when she decided to go home to Boston after. So it kind of follows and like reads like that. So it was interesting. I didn't really like agree with the main character's decisions, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. Final 2 books. So I read Golden Girl by Ellen Hildebrand. Again, I read 3 of her books this summer just because they're like the perfect summer read. But it just follows Vivian, who gets hit in a hit and run and ends up dying, but she gets 3 nudges back on Earth for her like children and stuff. So it follows her children's lives, how they deal with that, and like her nudges, so of like, and that influence or impact on their lives. I enjoyed it a lot. I give it 5 stars. When I first read the back, it didn't really seem interesting to me, but as I read it, I just loved it. Her writing, once again, amazing. And just the setting of Nantucket and all of that was really nice. And I just find myself devouring her novels in a couple of days, even though most of her books are like 400, 500 pages. But they're that good that I read them just in a couple of days. As my final book, I read Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood on my Kindle, and it just follows this physicist, Elsie, and she's this adjunct professor who really wants to do research in the field, and she meets Jack, and she's like works as a side hustle for fake dating, like as a fake girlfriend. And one of her clients' older brothers she meets, who's also in the same field as her, they start off a little on the wrong foot, but they get to know each other, and I loved it. I think all of Ali Hazelwood's women are just like such a badass, and they're really awesome. They're like such girl bosses. All of them work in the STEM field, and they really just focus on like their careers and themselves a lot. So I really enjoyed it. Gave it 5 stars. The chemistry between the characters, the plot, the setting is all amazing, and her writing is just fantastic. So those are all of the 27 books that I read this summer. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry if I'm like a little awkward. It's my first sit down video. I'm in my dorm, so I'm like, people can hear me. So if I seem like a little off or awkward, I apologize for that. But hopefully as I keep making videos, I'll just get more comfortable talking to a camera in my room. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you follow me on Goodreads, which will be linked down below, that is where I give updates about what books that I'm reading, my ratings, all of that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching.